How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Microsoft and BlackRock just formed a group to raise $100 billion to invest in AI data centers and power. Whitney Webb has talked about the dangers of BlackRock and some of these major tech companies getting access to your data, giving you AI so that your brain can basically rot, and then also knowing everything about you, and then forcing you to do things that aren't actually good for you. I want to play that clip from Whitney Webb, but first let's talk about what's actually happening here with Microsoft and BlackRock, and then we'll get to her and how she views this, the dangers of this. Of course, this is not all just, hopeless. If you have some kind of magical internet money that is not controlled by the government, maybe you have some kind of freedom. That's where Bitcoin can come in. At least that's what a lot of Bitcoiners think. If you want to trade Bitcoin, there's a link underneath the video to Margex where you can start trading using leverage. But let's start here. Microsoft and BlackRock form a group to raise $100 billion. They're going to start with $30 billion for new and existing data centers, and then up to $100 billion. They say that the initiative brings together financial and industry leaders to build the infrastructure of the infrastructure of the future and power it in a sustainable way. So they're looking to build out some of the infrastructure. They're looking to build out the amount of energy that we need for AI. Right? It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of GPU power as well. This would probably be good for NVIDIA, but yeah, they're going to now create more facilities. Now, this comes after we already see Microsoft spending so much money. They said in July that the fourth quarter capital spending, including assets acquired under financial leases, totaled $19 billion. So right now, BlackRock only has, $7 billion, $8 billion in cash with $5 billion in debt. They're most likely not putting a lot of their money in. They're helping finance it. Maybe they're, shifting some of their clients' assets to new funds that can, invest in this, maybe private funds or something like that. But we know Microsoft makes so much in free cash flow, $74 billion a year. This is obviously after CapEx, and look at their CapEx, $44.5 billion in a year. They spend so much, and that's just so far this year. That's so far this year. Last year, they spent $28 billion. So if we just look here at their quarterly, they've spent $13.87 billion so far in Q2, $11 billion in Q1, and then, $10 billion and $10 billion the quarters before. So it totals about $45 billion over the trailing 12 months, but it's ramping up. So they're spending a ton of money on AI, which, may be some cause for concern. Obviously, if they're controlling the data centers, they're going to get more control just in AI in general, right? With smaller startups maybe using them or their own products. They're also going to control the energy used to power AI, along with BlackRock, right? So they're going to make a ton of money. They're going to have power. They're going to be able to influence people that work within those infrastructures. So it's very interesting. These are, I don't want to say quasi-government groups, but they are really connected to the government, right? These companies do well, the government does well, the government does well, these companies do well in a way. I want to show you this clip recently from Whitney Webb on what Bitcoin did, and that's the name of the podcast, and she talks about the dangers of AI and how BlackRock, Microsoft, Palantir are all dangerous. Right? I want to play that for you, and then we'll come back here.
Yeah, some of the censorship stuff has been was a little bit insane then, and has carried on.
It's only going to get more insane.
Really? How bad?
Yeah, because they're trying to put AI in charge of the internet, and not just in charge of censoring what's on the internet, but also having AI make the lion's share of online content. So supposedly by 2025, generative AI like ChatGPT is going to produce like 96 or something % of everything you read online, which means their mainstream media journalists are going to be like completely replaced by them. I think there have been some magazines that have been caught using ChatGPT to write their stories already. I think Sports Illustrated was one. But only going to get crazier. And so when you have AI both like producing and then curating, i.e. censoring everything, then AI dominates the information environment, and whoever programs AI and stipulates like what information is okay and who isn't has like unprecedented control. And when you consider that most people today get their information from online or, digital sources, that's unprecedented control of what people, not just how the information that people like read and receive, but also, you're manipulating how people perceive reality. And that obviously translates into how people behave. And actually, Henry Kissinger, who I'm sure died recently, and the guy that he named as his heir, which is Eric Schmidt, the former Google CEO, wrote a book on AI explicitly about that and how AI is basically going to control how we perceive reality by taking control of online content in its entirety. And that us becoming increasingly dependent on AI for everything is going to cognitively diminish people so that we won't be able to perceive reality or make sense of anything without AI doing it for us.
It's going to be like, have you seen the film? You seen Wall-E or Wall-E?
Yeah, like maybe years and years and years ago, where the people are
in the pods drinking milkshakes.
Yeah, but worse than that, because it seems like there's sort of like, they have some sort of cognitive faculty left. What Kissinger and Schmidt say is that people are going to lose that. And it's the plan that they lose that.
Maybe they just won't need us anymore.
Well, I think, if people can't control how they perceive reality, they're no longer capable of critical analysis and thought. It's very easy to decide what you do with people.
So where does that put you then in terms of AI? Are you pro the technology?
I have a lot of opinions. I want to
hear them all.
Yeah, I don't use them. Oh. I think the whole idea of getting a lot of people to like use ChatGPT and all of this stuff is to lead us down this path that Kissinger and Schmidt, among others, sort of are charting out for humanity, where if you, it's pretty much common sense though. Like if you develop a skill and then don't do it for 10 or 15 years, for example, you kind of forget how to do it, right? Or even, I graduated from university like a little more than 10 years ago. How well do I recall the stuff that I took in university? Not great, right? So there's this whole idea of if you don't use it, you lose it. So if people are depending on AI to tell them where to turn when they're driving their car and, no one uses like actual maps anymore. I understand that it's convenient, right? And I'm not saying like, oh, we need to go back to the 90s, right? But, it becomes after a while a slippery slope where people are just having the computer tell them everything to do. Every step of their lives ends up becoming micromanaged to an extent. And the idea is that AI, through all the data that it absorbs about us, knows so much about us. Some of these people say it knows us better than we even know ourselves. That allows for an unprecedented degree of manipulation. And the problem is that the people producing and programming AI and ultimately controlling AI and what it can do not have our best interests at heart. And it is not a good idea to basically hand them our brains in a bag, we should keep those.
I've been using AI for work a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Like a more advanced search engine.
Yeah, totally. But who owns AI, right? It's pretty much Silicon Valley companies. So like even OpenAI, Sam Altman's thing, that's essentially like owned by Microsoft, right? And so you have Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Oracle, all of these companies essentially owning like almost everything. And all of those companies are contractors for the military and intelligence, right? Guess throw Palantir in the mix too. And when you consider something like Palantir, they profile people. They suck up all of your data and then they profile you. And Palantir can profile like whether or not they deem you subversive or not. And what happens when AI, gets access of that and gets put in control of things like humanitarian aid, like they're talking about doing, or in charge of, the government itself, which is also talked about in the Schmidt-Kissinger book. It gets complicated. So you know, a lot of people have been talking about becoming sort of like social credit paradigm, for example. So what happens if there's a big crisis, your country is like a war zone, or the economy collapses, and you're dependent on humanitarian aid or some sort of aid from the government or some other group, and there isn't enough for everyone, right? And so they decide, oh, well, it's fair to put super intelligent AI in charge of it. And then that AI is like, oh, well, this person's been very compliant and hasn't committed all of these thought crimes, but not you. You know, who is it going to decide to give the food rations to and stuff like that? You know, that's the risk of a lot of this stuff when it gets put in charge of too many systems. You know, if someone wants to make like an open source AI that, I don't know, does some stuff, I mean, I'm not going to be like, no, don't do that. But, you know, I think it's very important now more than ever to divest as much as possible from big tech, you know, Google and Oracle and, you know, all these other companies, Amazon, what have you, because they have too much power. The people in charge have obvious problematic agendas. And they basically, at least in the US, they own the government. I mean, they basically control the government. The tech billionaires fund almost all the politicians. They have access to all of the data of the military and intelligence agencies. And frankly, the Silicon Valley companies and the national security state in the US have fused 100%. They are the same blob. You can't tell where one ends and one begins anymore. That's highly problematic. That's fascism, right? When corporations and government fuse. So yeah, Silicon Valley fascism has arrived, at least in the United States. I think a lot of people just haven't realized it yet. So those companies we cannot feed, and they feed off of our data. They've been saying for years, data is the new oil. So instead of the oil barons of the early 20th century, these are the data barons of now. We need to divest from them.
Keep in mind that this news of Microsoft and BlackRock comes out just a few weeks after OpenAI and Anthropic signed a deal with the US government for AI research and testing. This is also concerning in my mind because we don't want the government to do what they did kind of with COVID, with gain of research, gain of function research, where they go test an AI, see how bad it can get, and then it leaks out and then destroys the world. We don't want that. So this does cause some concern because I'm not sure the government always has your best interest in mind. I'm not sure they're always thinking in the most logical ways, right? Because you can get bad actors within the government that have pretty much unlimited, I'd say unlimited capital, unlimited power. And unlike maybe the CEO of a company that is directly tied into the financials of that company, they don't want to burn it down. They have to do they have financial responsibilities or fiduciary responsibilities to shareholders. These government entities don't have that. So it is a bit concerning. Let me know your thoughts on this underneath the video. Of course, all right, we're talking about doom and gloom just because there is a 0% chance that this kind of thing happens. So if you do want some kind of protection, maybe you want some kind of maybe you want some kind of money that cannot be seized easily. So if you want that, you can go buy some Bitcoin. You can diversify a little bit into Bitcoin. But of course, always do your own research. I'm not a financial advisor. Bitcoin is volatile, all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. I'll see y'all in the next one.